Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for another breakfast with Blaha. Today I'm having Greek yogurt, almond butter, frozen blueberries. All right, today let's talk about why we cannot be dogmatic in limiting our tools. And it doesn't mean that we can find a use for everything, because sometimes we can't. I mean, funny enough, I tried to find a use for a trap bar. No matter what I've done with the trap bar, it turns out I feel like it's nothing but a useless hunk of shit. I can't figure out why certain coaches like it. And I have figured out why a number of top coaches also think that it's just a useless hunk of shit that you should just melt down for scrap iron. Right? Some very good coaches feel that way who are open-minded. And I kind of feel that way. But, it doesn't mean we don't look into it and try it. And I wanted to love the trap bar. But, and that's one of the ones I wanted to put out there first because I've had people who called me on that. They're like, you talk about being non-dogmatic, but then you hate that tool. And I'm like, I know, right? And everyone from Louis Simmons to Mark Ripto hates that tool. I can't find a use for it. I threw hundreds of dollars away on one. Piece of shit. And no, it's not even good for deadlifting. It might be good for conditioning. I can find a use. You can carry it for loaded carries for conditioning work. That's it. That aside, we can't be closed-minded about tools because a lot of times when we're open-minded about one tool, what happens? It opens up an entire toolbox off of that one thing that we did that brings us multiple new facets to our training. And Good Morning is a perfect example. This is one that I used to use many years ago, right? You guys saw me do it way back in the day. And then in my minimalist phase, I kind of said, no, I don't like these things, blah, blah, blah. And I agreed with people like Greg Nichols. I got dogmatic. And that was a horrible mistake on my part. I left so many games on the table. And that's why when you see someone like Greg Doucette, who, is an ignoramus, that's why I got kind of pissed off when he made those videos, and there's other stuff he's done that's upset me. But the guy is a complete ignoramus. If it wasn't for trend and genetics, he would have never achieved anything in lifting or anything else. He just wouldn't have. And his knowledge and concepts of training are way too limited. Way too limited. And so when he jumped on the Good Morning, it's just dangerous and demonstrated it poorly and all this. And he took one of the most valuable training tools that we have out there and put off an audience of 1 million people to it. And that's what a harm, like a complete nincompoop like that, this is a sort of harm that he causes. And he doesn't have the intelligence to understand how to use tools at all. I'm going to just throw more trend at it, Greg. That's why he's beat up, busted up. My age can't lift anything now. Completely destroyed. So you take something like the Good Morning. Well, what happens when we open our mind to the Good Morning? We realize that the Good Morning isn't an exercise. The Good Morning is an entire toolkit. Because when you're willing to open your mind to a movement like that a lot of amazing coaches use for max effort work, high rep work, everything else, you start to realize that, oh man, this is a phenomenal tool for fixing multiple problems, right? I use it to fix problems in novice lifters. I make all my novices do it. Two of the things it does, it fixes 2 problems. Low work capacity in the lower back. Enormous problem I get with novice lifters. Tight hamstrings, people with desk jobs, taller guys who have desk jobs. Enormously tight hamstrings. It's a stretch reflex exercise for the hamstring. We fix multiple problems with it. Number 3, since I coach the box squat, what's the Good Morning do? It teaches you how to do the eccentric rep on a box squat. It teaches you to box squat correctly. All right? This one simple movement gives me 3 different fixes to common problems. for novice lifters. But then we realize that it's not just one movement. That's when we treat it like one exercise. And we realize, wait, we have different barbells we can use with it. We can change the emphasis of this exercise. We can change our stances on it. We start changing our stances on it. It gives us an entire collection of exercises that are very good on the stimulus to fatigue ratio, which means they're phenomenal for hypertrophy. Okay, that's what we're looking for in a hypertrophy exercise, to bring up muscles, which is again a big part of strength training. Stimulus to fatigue. It gives us a whole toolbox of those. All right. We can take the stance in narrower to work more low back. We can take it out wider to work more hamstring, more adductor. We can change bars to change the emphasis. What else do we have? That we have a movement that can be a stretch reflex movement, especially if we want to hit more hamstring, or we can turn it into a dead stop exercise. Then it becomes a whole different movement. We take an exercise like that and take it off of pins, chains, straps. We can do it from a dead stop bottom up. It becomes an amazing deadlift builder, particularly for our low back. And we can't use as much weight, so then what? It's even easier on stimulus to fatigue. Arguably one of the best squat accessories, if we do a standard version or a power version, we take it to some of those versions, it becomes a phenomenal deadlift builder, lower back builder. We can build these big exercises with the smaller, easier movement, and it has direct carryover. But if we throw it away and just say, oh, no, I don't want to do that, well, Bruce Lee hurt his back doing it, like Bruce Lee knew anything about weight training. It's an entertainer. I respect the guy. I like his work. He's an entertainer. I don't give a shit. I do over 500 pounds on good mornings. I've seen Burley Hawk do 800. We're not hurt. So his experience is irrelevant. Now we take things like pause deadlifts, which I threw away. But then you go, well, look at all these champions who use it. Look at these amazing world-class level coaches, Boris Shako programs it all the time. Look at it and say, wait a minute. Not only is this a weak point training tool, it's a phenomenal stimulus to fatigue tool that lets us deadlift for hypertrophy while concurrently working on movement pattern weak points. It's a multifaceted tool. And if we're willing to mess with pause deadlifts, what else do we get? Well, wait a minute. If we're going to mess with it with pauses, we have other tools. What about box deadlifts, or chair deadlifts as they're called? I found that, which again is a variation of a pause deadlift, I have found the box deadlift to be a phenomenal tool for fixing people's posterior pelvic tilt on the deadlift who've developed it due to tight, weak hamstrings and compensatory strength. We can take people in that situation, fix their movement pattern on the deadlift, and make the deadlift safer for them. What happens when we do it with a sumo? It becomes one of the most amazing adductor exercises I've ever found. Adductor weaknesses are really common. All right? It's a phenomenal adductor builder. And it increases mobility in the adductors too, with a very easy to recover from exercise. It's just a variation of the pause deadlift. But when we are willing to say, hey, this tool, oh, it looks stupid to me, or I think it's dangerous, or whatever, doesn't make sense. But then when we realize why coaches use it, sometimes that one tool turns into 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different tools. Sometimes it turns into an entire toolbox in and of itself. Right? And this is why we have to look at these things open-minded and say, is there a reason this is a successful movement for a lot of coaches and lifters? What am I missing? What are they seeing that I'm not seeing? And again, sometimes when we do that, that one tool opens up entire categories of movements for us. They can fix all sorts of problems for ourselves, for our athletes. just by being willing to accept and look more closely at a tool that we've decided is garbage. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.